Um, Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us for this special media briefing on the occasion of the forthcoming visit of Honorable Vice President of India. He will be visiting Cambodia, in fact from tomorrow, to attend the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit and the 17th East Asia Summit. To give us a sense of the visit and some more shared details of it, we have the privilege of having with us Secretary East in the Ministry of External Affairs, Saurabh Kumar sir. We also have on the dais Shri Vishwas Sapkal, Joint Secretary South, as well as Ms. Kritika Srivastav, Joint Secretary Indo-Pacific. Sir, I'll hand over the floor to you, sir, for giving us some sense of this, and then we can take a few questions.
Namaskar, good afternoon to all the media friends. At the invitation of the Prime Minister of Kingdom of Cambodia, Honorable Vice President of India, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar, will lead a delegation for the 19th ASEAN-India Summit and the 17th East Asia Summit to be held in Phnom Penh on 12th and 13th of November this year. During the visit, the Honorable Vice President will also have a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Hun Sen of Cambodia and other Cambodian dignitaries. On the margins, he would also hold other bilateral meetings with other leaders. The 19th ASEAN-India Summit is being observed as the commemorative summit to mark the 30th anniversary of ASEAN-India Dialogue Partnership. During the summit, the Vice President and ASEAN leaders will review the commemorative activities which have been held during the course of the year. They will also take stock of the progress made and exchange views on future course of our relationship and the relationship in the coming decade. Important regional and international developments would also be discussed during the interaction. As you must be aware, ASEAN-India summits are held annually and provide opportunity for India and ASEAN to engage at the highest level. This will be the first foreign visit of the Honorable Vice President in his current capacity. I want to highlight that the Honorable Vice President's first foreign engagement was also with ASEAN during the visit of ASEAN Interparliamentary Assembly delegation comprising of parliamentarians from ASEAN countries to India in August this year. ASEAN-India strategic partnership stands on a strong foundation of shared geographical, historical, and cultural ties. ASEAN is central to our Act East policy and our wider vision of Indo-Pacific. India and ASEAN have nearly 30 dialogue mechanisms which meet regularly, including a summit and around 7 ministerial meetings. And these ministerial meetings are at the level of foreign ministers, commerce ministers, tourism ministers, agriculture ministers, environment ministers, renewable energy ministers, and telecommunication ministers. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar attended the ASEAN-India Foreign Ministers meeting in August in Phnom Penh earlier this year. This year, India and ASEAN organized a series of commemorative activities for their 30th anniversary, as I have just mentioned. This year is also being celebrated as the ASEAN-India Friendship Year. It started with the release of joint logo and included a special ASEAN-India Foreign Ministers meeting, which was held in New Delhi in June. The visit of ASEAN Parliamentary Delegation in August and the first ASEAN-India Startup Festival in October were also organized. It also included organization of various Track 1.5 activities like Act East through Northeast Conclave in Assam and the 7th ASEAN-India Network of Think think tanks, both of which were held in May. 12th edition of India Dialogue in June, which was held during the Foreign Ministers meeting. Seminar on convergence of ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific and Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative in September, and ASEAN-India Media Exchange in June and November. The Friendship Year also saw a focus on youth-centric activities, including the inauguration of ASEAN-India Network of Universities in August, ASEAN-India Artists Camp in October, and the scheduled ASEAN-India Music Festival and Youth Summit, which would be held later on. The other scheduled activities of this commemorative year include the first ASEAN-India Defense Ministers meeting. This would be held after the ADMM Plus meeting, which is scheduled for the 20th of November, and the maiden ASEAN-India Maritime Exercise, which would be held in the first quarter of next year. Coming to Honorable Vice President's participation in the East Asia Summit, this is the other part of his engagement. The summit is, as you know, a premier leaders-led forum in the Indo-Pacific. Since its inception in 2005, it has played a significant role in the strategic and geopolitical evolution of East Asia. Apart from the ASEAN member states, East Asia Summit includes India, China, Japan, Republic of Korea, Australia, New Zealand, United States, and Russia. India, being the founding member of the East Asia Summit, remains committed to strengthening it and making it more effective to deal with contemporary challenges. It is also an important platform to promote practical cooperation in the Indo-Pacific by building upon the convergence between ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific and Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. At the 17th East Asia Summit, leaders will discuss ways to further strengthen the East Asia Summit mechanism, as well as matters of regional and international interest and concern, including maritime security, terrorism, and non-proliferation. I would now very briefly, cover the bilateral aspect of the Vice President's visit. As I had mentioned, he'll be having meeting with the Cambodian dignitaries also. Relations between India and Cambodia remain friendly and on growth trajectory. In the context of India's Act East policy and ASEAN, Cambodia continues to be an important interlocutor and a reliable partner. Our centuries-old cultural and historical linkages are manifest in Buddhist religion and the magnificent temples of Cambodia, most notably Angkor Wat, Ta Prohm, and Preah Vihear. India stood by Cambodia through what was one of its most difficult periods in modern history. This is remembered and acknowledged by the leadership and people of Cambodia. The two countries have a regular exchange of visits and interactions at high level. Last visit of the Honorable Vice President of India to Cambodia took place in 2015. In more recent years, Prime Minister Hun Sen visited India in January 2018 for the ASEAN-India commemorative summit, and he also had bilateral interactions during that visit. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Hun Sen had a telephone conversation in June 2020 when the COVID pandemic was on. More recently, Prime Minister Modi had another virtual meeting with Prime Minister Hun Sen on 18th of May, where they discussed comprehensively our bilateral relationship. And Prime Minister Hun Sen also thanked India for providing 3.25 lakh doses of India-manufactured Covishield vaccines under the Quad Vaccine Initiative. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, while on a visit to Cambodia from 3 to 5 August, also had the annual ASEAN-India Foreign Ministers meeting and called on Prime Minister Hun Sen. Honorable Vice President will also be calling on His Majesty, the King of Cambodia, and meet Prime Minister Hun Sen, as I've already stated, and Senate President Se Chum. We are hopeful of concluding some memorandum of understandings which are being discussed, and the visit would deepen our capacity building and demining cooperation there. Honorable Vice President would also be interacting with the Indian community and with Friends of India in Phnom Penh on the day of his arrival, which is 11th of November. After attending the East Asia Summit on 13th of November, in the afternoon, Honorable Vice President will travel to Siem Reap, where he will inaugurate the Hall of Dancers at the Taprom Temple. The Honorable Vice President will also pay a short visit to Angkor Wat Temple, where India had done work during the 80s. We believe that the visit will contribute to strengthening India-Cambodia bilateral relationship. We will be informing you on the MOUs and other details of the visit in the next press conference, which is planned in Cambodia on the 12th of November. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. While perhaps the group here will not be in Cambodia, there will be other journalists there who will, I'm sure, follow up on this, sir. I'll now open the floor for any questions. Please introduce yourself and the organization you represent. Siddhant.
Hi, sir. Siddhant from Vion. Usually the Prime Minister travels to Cambodia and represents India. I mean, this is a change this time. The Vice President is visiting. While there is an elevation, any reason why the Prime Minister did not go to Cambodia?
Okay. 1 second, take one by one. I would like to take a few questions together. Yeah.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर, मेरा नाम कविता जोशी है, मैं हरिभूमि न्यूज़पेपर से हूँ। सर, मेरा सवाल ये जो आपने कहा कि 20 नवंबर को आसियान इंडिया डिफेंस मिनिस्टर्स की जो मीटिंग होगी, इसका क्या एजेंडा होगा, क्या फीचर्स हैं इसमें, और चाइना का इसमें किस तरह का पार्टिसिपेशन है? क्या इंडो पैसिफिक में हम जो बात कर रहे हैं कि ये खुला हुआ स्वतंत्र समावेशी इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन होना चाहिए, या इस इशू को भारत रखेगा भारत की तरफ से?
I saw another hand a minute ago. Yes, please.
So, Naima from the print, just wanted to understand, what is the issue that will be discussed as far as Myanmar is concerned? How aligned is India's policy along with Myanmar, with ASEAN's, as far as Myanmar is concerned, and if that will be, they'll be part of it? Thank you.
Maybe I'll give you the 3 questions. And
Yeah. So, Siddhant, we attach great importance to our relationship with ASEAN. As you know, in the past, Prime Minister has been participating in our summit engagements with the ASEAN, but this time it has been decided that the Vice President would be going. As far as informal defense ministers meeting India and ASEAN is concerned, which would be held following the ADMM plus meeting, इसमें सभी मुद्दे हमारे डिफेंस कॉपरेशन के जो हैं सिक्योरिटी संबंधित जो मुद्दे हैं उन सब पे चर्चा होगी, और जब ये मीटिंग होगी तो उस समय हम आपको इसके विषय में और बताएंगे। लेकिन मुख्य बात ये है कि ये पहली बार हमारे रक्षा मंत्री जी हैं और जो आसियान के जो रक्षा मंत्री हैं उनके बीच में इस फॉर्मेट में पहली बार मीटिंग हो रही है, तो ये एक इम्पॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है। Nanima, on Myanmar, our position is quite clear. We support the ASEAN 5-point consensus. we would like to see Myanmar move towards a democratic government. We would like to see that violence in Myanmar ceases. So this is broadly our policy, and essentially we would like the ASEAN to take the initiative, and we support the 5-point consensus which ASEAN is working on.
If there are no other queries, so may I thank you for your presence, sir. Also, thanks to Vishwas as well as to Geetika. Thank you all for this special briefing on the Vice President's forthcoming visit. We will continue to bring to you developments through our social media as well as on our website, etc. Please stay tuned for that. Thank you.